What's up, y'all? Tis your boy Dreaded Don here, back again delivering y'all some news that I just beat Capes, my friends. Just beat it. Earlier this year I played Dispatch, enjoyed the hell out of it. Essentially a superhero dispatch game where you use the synergy of your heroes to send them out on crimes, to solve those crimes, and then because of that they'll get XP. You can level them up in various ways. Man, after I played that, I was craving another superhero game, and I was like, you know what? I played Capes a couple months back. I was like, maybe I should go revisit that. I'll go revisit that and you see it through and beat it and be like, okay, what see what it had to offer, right? And I went and did that. Went and beat it. It was a pretty decent deal. Enjoyed the story. Enjoyed the gameplay that it had to offer. A couple of the systems had me a little interested. There are a little bit of a gripes that I had within, and after that, after I had all that, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should let y'all know how I've been enjoying it and how it went for me. And because of that, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go and do it. So anyways, my friends, as we do, we're going to go ahead and get into the story, get into the gameplay, get into the systems, then just let y'all know how I'm feeling about it overall. But yeah, let's dive on in. So starting us off, man, we got the story where it takes place after a superhero group and a supervillain group have essentially just had an epic battle and an epic clash where the supervillain group has prevailed. They've taken hold of the King City. They've murdered off all the other superheroes that were part of the group, and there's only one that actually really survived because of certain specific things pertaining to his power, right? And now this supervillain group is essentially going through the entire city, picking up any young supers that they see, draining them of their powers, and using them for their own specific needs and their own specific causes, right? And the one superhero that did survive, now he's been trying to gather the other young supers that are around the city to essentially just form a revenge group, a straight up revenge group. He doesn't want to form a Young Justice, not anything that's going to go out and save civilians or anything. He really wants to get a revenge group so he can take out the heads of the super villain group that essentially killed his colleagues, right? But now that's where it takes a little bit of an interesting turn. The superheroes, the young superheroes that he's been recruiting, are looking more towards the traditional superhero path. They're like, no, we want to save civilians. We want to make sure we get King City back onto the proper path. There's a specific way to do these things. And Doc is the superhero that was left over from the Remnant group. Is like, no, we got to be rugged with it. These guys need to be taken down. They need to die. They've done gruesome things. They've done horrid things. And this young superhero group is still learning the ways. And because they're so young and because they're new to this, they have to understand different procedures and different things. And I think that's where the different missions and the different story bonds and this different relationships that they build with each other and the way that they see things happening and unfolding that the supervillains do, not only to the civilians in the city, but also to the other young supers that they find, as well as possibly sometimes the young supers that are joining the groups, their families. They start to have a little bit of a change of heart and a little bit more of an understanding when it comes to Doc's ways and making sure that this groups get out of the picture, right? And that's essentially the primary story without spoiling too much between just the character developments that you're going to have. One of the main heroes that you're going to be, the three main heroes that you're really going to get introduced to at the beginning are going to be Facet, is a crystal guy who used to be a lawyer, left the lawyer route because he figured that his powers allow him to be a better superhero. Another character is you're going to come across a girl named Rebound, who essentially is like a Nightcrawler type of hero who used to be a thief but now wants to have a change of heart and wants to work towards the better writing of things. And then you also come across your first hero who joins the group, who happens to be Mindfire, is I guess you would say as a paraplegic, right? Because he's in a wheelchair, but is the telekinetic, so he's able to just float around. He is essentially Professor Xavier from the X-Men, and hey, he got it just like him. So those are just your little light introduction. You do get a good bit more heroes. I think you get about four. I don't know. I think it's like 4 or 5. You get a good handful of more characters to join you, and their stories kind of unfold. Like they get introduced as the story unfolds for you, and their relationships also tie into the way the story and the way that their mindset changes as they come across these different types of consequences that the supervillains have for them. But all that being said, that's just what the story has to offer. If we're talking about what the gameplay has to offer, though, we got a good bit. It's similar to something like XCOM or Phoenix Point, or if you played any of the Wastelander series, maybe early Fallout. It's not directly just like those, mainly because those have like cover and you can place your character behind half cover, full cover, take protection shots, things like that. Now this has what makes it a little different is you have line of sight, so the enemies are able to see you or not see you, and based on if they're able to see you, they can just choose to when they are able to see you, you can start engaging in combat, right? So you often have the time to give them a sneak attack. That's probably the highest level of line of sight and cover that you have. Outside of that, it is on a grid-based combat system, kind of similar to XCOM, so you'll be able to move around a certain amount of movement, and then based on those movements, then you have your action turn and your movement turn. So again, if you're used to like a turn-based strategy game, it should all feel very familiar. Where it does differ a little bit is you have the synergy for each of the heroes. So if you have two heroes within 3 movement slots of each other, they have power-ups they're able to activate with each other. And some of them also have, on top of their ultimates, which you use by charging up their specific abilities. Like if you're playing as Rebound, you want to make sure you do back attacks. If you use them playing as Facet, since he's essentially the tank, he wants to take damage and he builds his ultimate that way. Once you build their ultimates, you're able to unleash a large, wide-scale attack that attacks a large group of enemies. And as I was saying, some of those superheroes have synergy between each other, where you can use one character's ultimate, and if you're standing next to another superhero, that hero will bolster their ultimate and make it even more powerful. And I thought that both of those elements in the gameplay were really cool. Now, outside of that, some of the elements that I also thought were really cool is being able to like knock off enemies or being able to disarm them. Some of the superheroes are very, very versatile in the way that they're able to just rip the enemy's weapon from them or disarm some of the bombs that are on the map. And then, of course, they also place you on a lot of the maps that are on buildings. And a lot of the heroes, two of the heroes that you get are really good at pushing people off of shit. So it's pretty much your primary objective is just to push people off of stuff, because you just like, hey, get up off the building, come here, let me pull you over this ledge, let me take your weapon from you. And I thought both of those 2 elements in the game were really cool. That on top, like all put together, makes it, pretty cohesive in terms of the gameplay that you're dealing with. And like I said, you have the line of sight, you have the power-ups, you have the ultimates, you have the disarms, you have the knockoffs, then you have specific movements, and all that put together makes it a pretty decently fun turn-based strategy game that I found myself enjoying, and kind of got hooked trying to make sure I had the perfect movements in order to get everything done and then get the all-for-one objective, because that was one of the main things that the game has. There's objectives that you need to do. Maybe it'll be like, okay, kill this amount of enemies without letting anyone be alerted, and then stop them from being reinforced. And while you do that, make sure that you don't take any damage. And trying to get all of that done in one was sometimes a little tricky situation there, where I think there was like 2 or 3 missions that I didn't get the all for ones in. But nonetheless, once you learn how to like do all of those gameplay elements and fit them all together, the objectives start to flow a little bit more so. But then the game does ramp it up and give you some pretty tough ones, I'll be honest. Now, if I'm being honest, that the gameplay has a lot of the system elements just really just tied in and of themselves. The system elements that are included in the game are don't really differentiate themselves too much. Like I said, you have the heroes, and then you essentially have the skill trees that you could say for each of the heroes that go all the way up until about level 5. Outside of the skill trees that allow you to spend the SP points you're going to get from different missions, you have different types of mission types. You have your primary missions, which are like going to lead you into the furthering the campaign, and then you also have your patrol missions, which are essentially like side quests, and you also have like training holo sims that you can go into. And each of the side missions and holo sims are going to give you extra XP and extra experience points, essentially, that you can spend on the heroes and their skill trees. Outside of those 2 elements, you have the lore elements that lead into the game, which are just like logs and specific dialogue moments that you can hear between the different types of superheroes to see how their relationships play out and see how it's affecting the story. It's not like you can choose different types of dialogue to have it affect the story differently. It's just once you reach a certain point, you do a certain mission, or you do certain you unlock a certain elements. Like the game will want you to hit maybe do like 25 backstabs, or bolster your teammate's speed 10 times in a row, or make an enemy vulnerable. And once you do those specific elements or the specific objectives for each of the heroes, it'll unlock a specific dialogue between 2 different heroes, and maybe a cinematic for that hero and what they're going through as they're being at the superhero base with Doc, right? And those are essentially the various elements that the game really has to offer. It's nothing too in depth. Again, it's a fairly quick game that you could probably play in about 14 to 20 hours, I guess. If you're really dedicating yourself to it, you probably take a little bit longer. But I think it took me over the course of like a week and a half. It took me about like 60 hours. But it is like some of the missions, if you're trying to go for the all for one, the all-in-ones, it's going to take you quite a long time. But if you're just trying to speed through the game and not trying to get the missions completely done, and just trying to get the campaign and see what the story has to offer, you could probably finish it within like 14 to 16 hours, you know. Outside of that, it's like, yeah, it was, again, like I was really just craving another superhero squad based tactical game that I could play where I could send out a group of superheroes to see what type of synergies and level abilities that they would get once I leveled them up and completed the missions. And I got that. I got exactly that. Now I'm honestly thinking about going and playing Midnight Suns. I played it earlier again last year and I didn't complete it, but now I'm like, what else do I got to do? Maybe I play like Avengers, you know what I mean? I don't know. If you play any superhero team-based, party-based games or turn-based strategy games, let me know down below. I kind of messed that all up, but it's all good, right? Anyways, if you're playing any of those things that are similar to what I just fumbled with, let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, my friends, and of course, sub so we can continue to share some more info. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys on the horizon. Deuces. Look at this guy. Stop. In your tracks.